I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds and welcome to my horror house. We're going to continue our weekly Monday look at an old Christmas tradition from the 1970s, the BBC Ghost Stories for Christmas. A couple of episodes per video, non-spoilery because I will point you to where you can view each episode online. This week we kick off with an episode called The Ash Tree, which was broadcast at 11:35 p.m. on the 23rd of December 1975. We join Sir Richard Fell as he arrives at Castringham, a country estate he inherited from his uncle. Sir Richard has plans to marry, have children and make an extension to his stately home, but he finds that things have a habit of dying on his land. Livestock, birds, ancestors. This has been the case ever since one of his ancestors, Sir Matthew Fell, condemned a local woman to death as a witch. And the locus of the problem seems to be the ancient ash tree that grows outside Matthew Fell's old bedroom window. This is another slow build story, as is the tradition of this TV series, the kind that focuses on atmosphere over effects, which is something the whole series has excelled at, although that doesn't mean that this episode is devoid of effects this time round. As to the atmosphere, though, it's phenomenal, as I've come to expect from this 70s annual ghostly extravaganza. There is one amazing shot which shows two characters, and you have the land, and the sea in the distance appears to be the sky, a very striking image that perfectly encapsulates how completely Fell is now engulfed by the cursed land around him, and also how the norms of up and down, past and present, are becoming distorted. The way the past impinges upon the present in the episode is handled masterfully, growing in insistence and influence, at first through audio and then visual flashbacks intercutting with Fell in the present day, and we're unsure at first of just how much of these sights and sounds from the past Fell is aware of as it starts to insidiously affect the present and his mental state and his thoughts. Of the titular ash tree, someone comments wondering what the roots of the tree are doing to the mansion's foundations, and how is that for a metaphor, with the mansion standing for the family tree and the house of the Fell family, whilst the ash tree is an avatar for Anne Mothersole, the woman accused of and killed for witchcraft. Barbara Ewing plays Anne Mothersole. She was the blousy barmaid in Hammer's Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. She retains a similar kind of latent sexuality in this performance as well. It's perhaps worth noting that this is the first episode of BBC's Ghost Stories for Christmas that includes nudity, in case you intend to introduce your children to these spooky tales. And this is perhaps one of the rare missteps for this particular episode. Not that Mothersole herself is a sexual character or that there is an aspect of nudity, but this playing up of a notion that there might have been feelings of sexual attraction between Mothersole and Matthew Fell, the man who ultimately becomes her accuser. There are lots of excellent Witchfinder type movies, Mark of the Devil and The Witchfinder General spring most readily to mind, where the hypocrisy of the accusers and the innocence of the women are fantastically explored. Where this story has to end up, though, it's a strange wrinkle to add. To an extent, this episode tries to have its cake and eat it, understandably acknowledging the power imbalance and despicable hypocrisy of witchfinders and accusers, while also needing at the end to deliver the sort of diabolical supernatural ta-da that's at the end of M.R. James's story. Some may consider the actual ending a little bit of a misstep. For the first time in this series, we're reliant upon some special effects. a little bit of show rather than just a allusion to the supernatural. For every viewer, your mileage is going to vary. Personally, I think the introduction of, without spoiling it, what we see is very welcome and so uncanny that it has exactly the intended effect. But I feel we linger a little too long and see a little too much. I'd have trimmed a few seconds here and there, but it's going to be a matter of personal taste for an episode that overall is a bit of a triumph. The next episode is The Signalman, which was first broadcast on the 22nd of December 1976. This is the first time in the series that a tale isn't adapted from the work of M.R. James. Instead, we get a ghostly story from the pen of Charles Dickens, the man responsible more than any other for the association of Christmas with ghost stories. Of the original run, it would also be the last story adapted from an existing piece of literature. The Signalman is not the story of a man who gets bitten by a radioactive signal, but instead the tale of a lone railwayman who is haunted by visions of a figure which seems to precede and warn of impending disasters. Denham Elliott plays the titular character, and whilst the episode is a two-hander in the main, it's Elliott's show from start to finish. Like Quint's USS Indianapolis speech in Jaws, just having Elliott describing the effects of a tunnel collision between two trains is worth more than millions of pounds of special effects. Just watching his portrayal of a man haunted by fate and brought to the edge of his own sanity and understanding is a joy to watch. Whoever was location scout for this annual series earned their money. Once again, I have to talk about the location. It's perfect. A replica Great Western Railway signal box was erected in the cutting on the Kidderminster side of the Bewdley Tunnel. This means that we get to beautifully place this lone lookout within shots of train tracks just stretching off to the horizon in one direction and disappearing quickly into the pitch black mouth of a tunnel in the other direction, all cut off from the rest of the world by steep embankments on either side. This episode is laced through with shots of mist, steam train and smoke to really allude to the ethereal, intangible and supernatural at play here. I've talked in previous videos about how these episodes tackle showing the supernatural without spoiling it. And something's done in The Signalman that I don't know how you go about doing it. The spectre appears at the mouth of the tunnel each time and seems to be warning each time of impending disaster soundlessly. I'm not sure how it's possible that you shoot someone, because there's someone physically there, so that you can see them, but at the same time not be able to make out quite what it is that you're seeing. There are shots of Elliot approaching this figure and squinting, and then you'll get the reverse angle and you'll find yourself squinting too, trying to make out what it is you're being shown. You can see a figure there, you can see someone's there, but you can't quite make it out. I've kind of never experienced anything like it. You're so completely in the character's shoes, and it's a shot and there are no special effects. I mentioned a single remarkable shot from the ash tree, and The Signalman is not short of a striking image or two. In particular, there's one of Denham Elliott emerging from the pitch black mouth of the railway tunnel following a collision inside as smoke billows out of the darkness behind him as if he's emerging from hell himself. For a kind of modern day reference to The Signalman, it has a little bit of the Mothman prophecies about it. It's fair to say that Dickens' tale sits wonderfully, snugly within the clutch of M.R. James' stories that have preceded it, and it's a fantastic addition to this ongoing series. Next week, a massive change of gear and something as Monty Python were wont to say, completely different.